This conference will now be recorded.
Nothing like a special meeting on the 150th, but we'll go ahead and call roll call.
Commissioner Eastman?
Here.
Commissioner Gainer?
Here.
Commissioner Warren?
Here.
Commissioner Welch?
Here.
Commissioner Rogers?
Here. The only thing on the agenda is to discuss the R&R and set a public hearing to discuss it. So I think we kind of briefly brought this up last Friday and had some ideas thrown out there. So I'm going to turn it over to you or Jennifer or.
Yeah, so we met last week to talk about going over the neutral revenue rate, and from that meeting there was some suggestions on how to move forward. Today we need to know what the intent of going over the neutral revenue rate is, so that we can notify the county so that they can start their process as well. So
Okay.
I guess really the conversation is among,
So with it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but whatever number is set today, we cannot exceed from this point forward.
Right,
So-
what is published today in our resolution, we cannot go over that. We can come down from it.
Right.
We cannot exceed it.
And so we have approximately 40 some odd days to come down if we wanted to, because finalization is in September.
I have it set right now for September 7th.
Okay.
To adopt it. And if you don't adopt it, then you're going to have a special meeting after.
Okay. So what we talked about in the meeting was we're at 70.86, is that right?
70.276 right
70.276. So if we, and this money goes into the general fund. It's not water money, it's not sewer money, it's not sanitation.
Right.
This goes directly into the general fund,
Not all of the 70.276, 6 of it goes to the library
correct?
and 9.016 goes to debt service. So the rest of it.
So we're starting at 55, around 55 mils. And so if we were to set the bar a little bit higher, we can come back down if the public, after we talk to the public, but that would give us time for public hearings. If we set the bar low, we're stuck right there.
Yeah, you cannot exceed it.
Okay.
That's my interstate.
So one of the things we talked about in the meeting was going to 74.26, whatever the number was.
70.26.
Yeah, to go up 4 mils, which on a property of $100,000 would be about $50 for the year.
Yeah, $53 is what I calculated.
Okay. All right. But we can come down if we need to after that. Okay.
How many
So-
years has it been, Jennifer, since they've had any significant change?
It's been, I think it's 12. It's remained between 60 and 70.
This city has done a great job staying within their budget. But you reach a point where that's just not possible.
Our mill levy, we didn't decide, but we discussed going up that 74 mills. That's so we can do some things that we've been cutting out of our budget in the previous years. And one of them we want to do is fix roads and maybe get some equipment to fix the streets.
I think that sounded like
So-
our primary effort, didn't it?
Well, I think that's what
That's what
you
they
hear people
want.
say, the roads are terrible in town. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's something we need to really consider.
correct me if I'm wrong on my numbers. These are just like estimates, are not like right to the penny. But basically with the ad valorem tax, we collect right about 4 million a year. But in the general fund, and the police and fire alone take almost 6 million to operate. So the property taxes don't even pay for police and fire services.
Right.
So that's where all those other revenues are needed, transfers out utilities and all the different fees for services that are collected to.
And then we have the one sales tax.
And the
Fire.
tax, yeah.
So if we made a motion today to do the slight increase on the mill, come before the September meeting, if we could set it, but we couldn't go higher. But we could come down if we needed to. There's quite a bit of property that's not taxed, that's within the city limits. School district, college, property the city owns, and anything that we've given a tax credit to, some of those.
Churches.
And churches, yeah. And so they don't pay any property tax. So it is divided among a smaller group of citizens and property owners. But there are things, every cost has gone up around us. Their supply, I mean, we watch the wood prices go up, and as a city that we had to purchase at a higher cost. And I know every time you do, or the city does a project that has matching funds, those also have to come from the general fund. What is your process if you were going to pull from a self-funded fund like the water fund to move over? Is there state statutes and regulations that you have to go through?
Yeah, so any transfer from any fund has to be within the state statute. So, and that has to be budgeted.
Okay. We had a lot of unbudgeted situations this year, which resulted in having to get some equipment for the fire department that they had to have. It was for their breathing apparatuses to be able to go into fires. And so we had a lot of unbudgeted things that came up. So.
Well, I want to say that, that I don't like to raise taxes. Nobody likes that, and I think that, if we went to like 71 mills, we're just a little bit higher what we were last year. But to me, I think if you're going to look at streets and, down the road and so forth, we need to probably take a year and figure out what we want to do on streets, where we want to start with, what streets we want to begin with, let the public see what it is, and see what it's going to cost, see how many streets we can do, in this funding type. We haven't done any of that stuff right now. We're just kind of guessing at things. And I'm more inclined to see this grow sales tax, and that's where the income needs to be at. And eventually start lowering the mill levy on property tax, for the people and stuff. So I don't know. To me,
sorry, Mayor. My thought is we have this wastewater facility. We're still trying to wrestle with that. And we don't know where that's even going to end up. That changes, depends on who you talk to, what email you get, what it's going to be, or what the recommendations are. That needs to be, I think, first priority for our community and how we're going to address that.
Yeah.
The second thing is, Commissioner Giger has a point. Everything's going up. Cost of living is going up. The mill levy is eventually going to have to be adjusted potentially if we don't get an increase in revenue with sales tax. But I would like, before we just do it and then speak to the citizens, my thought is address the wastewater facility, get that ironed out, and over the next year, start talking to the community, explain our dilemma, explain where we're at, and see what's comfortable with them. And then next year, if we have to jump into it, then go at it next year. It's hard to just say, well, we're going to try to do this, and this with it, or maybe we'll do this with it or that, but we don't have a strategy or strategic plan in place to show what it's going for. And I know when you talk to citizens about the 4 or 3 or 2 or whatever, they're like, well, what's it going to go to? Well, we're hoping to do this. Well, I've heard that before. Or, I think they want to see how this money would be used more than just, well, the cost of living is going up. And I don't know if we don't have plans in place to use it. That's my thought. I'll support what everyone else decides, but I would like to talk to the citizens and let them kind of explain the process. In the meantime, figure out the wastewater facility. We also have a pool that's going to have to be eventually addressed, or hopefully we address that soon. And also storm water rates may be affected. I think we got a lot of things coming up over the next 6 months that I would prefer to get those kind of figured out before we jump into the property or the mill levy. That's just my opinion, though.
So isn't what Jennifer said that we can set it wherever we want right now? and we can always come down after a
Yes.
public meeting?
Yes. You know, I've talked to several of the department heads. In our budget book that we have for this year, it says curb and gutters continue to be a priority for public service. Tony's probably got in that department 75, 125 patches that need to be done, areas that are on a list to do, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so we know there's potholes out there. We're not talking about complete resurfacing of stuff, but there are some of those streets that are on a list that need to be resurfaced, whether it's the comings and goings on the street where Second and Walnut, is that what you just did?
Second and Cedar first.
Second and Cedar first. And it's beautiful that they took it from this to flat as you can get in that. For the state, for the funding for the streets, the gas that you purchase, when you go out of town and purchase a gallon of gas somewhere else, we don't get the pennies that we normally would. So on average, for the street repairs, we get about 268,000 for the street from the state, right, Jennifer?
Gas tax, yeah.
Okay, and so that comes in directly off us buying a gallon of gas here. And then the county, which also gets money from the state, redistributes that down to us and we get about 40,000. How much would $300,000, how much does that do for you in that department? How many potholes can you fill? How many,
Well, it depends on the condition of the street you're actually trying to work on.
right?
The average street size is about 20, 22 feet wide, I believe. And linear block footage, I'm not exactly sure of because there's a lot of places you have 2 block roads or, some are shorter. But what do you want to go back with? You want to use concrete, you want to use asphalt, I'd like to eventually go asphalt and concrete for the majority of the high traffic areas. And for those, concrete are the best thing to use because when you have semis turning on that, or heavy sanitation trucks, or big distributor truck, things like that tend to wear out asphalt faster than your everyday pickup passenger car.
Okay. Into the general fund, the street money would go, and the street money comes out of the general fund. And if they don't have any money, they can't repair anything. Jennifer spends a lot of her time moving things around. One of the things our city manager said is, we're not going to chase grants anymore and then fit a project to it. We're going to find what needs to be fixed and fit a grant to that if possible. We find ourselves in a position where a EMT at the fire department makes $12.37 an hour, something like that. Okay. And you can get a job at a local ice creamery for $13 an hour, not have to worry about anything. Our wages, there's nothing we can do about the fact that
Well, of course,
life
they
has
don't
gone
get
up
full
around us.
benefits, health insurance.
They don't, but they look at
I know.
immediate. And so we have about 8% of our employees which are working second jobs, and another 4 to 5% which have second businesses that they're running, whether it be lawn mowing or cattle or farming or whatever. So I think we need to put that bar up a little bit so that our treasurer can look at it. We need to talk to the citizens because we're not committing to anything today other than we won't go over this amount. And we can come back down if the citizens so desire that. We have plenty of time to meet with them and have a town hall meetings. And no one wants to raise taxes. No one wants to do that. But we get 35 cents, 0.86 out of, so 36 cents almost out of every dollar that's paid in property tax. It goes other places too. The state gets a percentage, the USD 470, the college. Who am I missing? There's one more. The county. everybody gets a percentage of that. And so we are operating basically with 55 mills. And I just think we'll, does it need to go higher? Might. Have we cut as much as we can cut? I've been looking at capital outlay in this book and how much has been cut. They put it in and they take it out. Say, well, we'd love for you to have this much money in your department and this much money in your department and this much money in demolition is a perfect example. They start out with 100,000 every year because they've got plenty of properties and they wind up with 50,000. We hope you can get 25 out of that. And if we don't need it for something else, here's 12. So we think that it's going to be this high and it winds up being something else. But I want the public to be included. I want to talk to them. And I've already had some pretty stern conversations with some that I was telling this treasurer about, where they said, lay people off, shut departments down. Okay, which one you want to shut down? Who do you want to take 10% from? Because I'm sure they'll stay, And so those things just aren't doable. We need to have some real solutions and be able to move forward. This is about taking care of the citizens, and you have to have the tools to be able to do that for them. I get calls about lawn mowing and potholes and abandoned buildings. Okay, somebody's got to go out there. I just think we should set the bar at 74 mills and come back down if we need to.
I don't disagree with the things that have been, you've said at all. I just don't feel, my thought is I'd rather talk to the citizens first, explain what we're doing and get some of these projects figured out so that they know. A lot of them are going to feel like we just kind of snuck this in last minute at the last second. But I know, but they're going to say, you really aren't going to, I've already had a few say, you're going to say you're going to go here, but you'll lower it if you think we need, if people get mad enough. But they're like, you won't, you'll keep it where it's at. I mean, it's that unfortunate, the lack of trust in government everywhere. I mean, that's the nature of our climate as it is now. Like, yeah, you say you'll lower, but we all know if you keep it, you're going to keep it and you're not going to lower it. I mean, I think that's one of the fears they have, but I really feel like we've got to figure out some projects here and talk to the citizens before we do this. And I think if we would have been, now that we're finally having to do this new process, I think we probably would have, or in May or April while we were doing that instead of now. At least I just feel like it's being rushed in my opinion. I don't want the citizens to be upset or feel like, well, this is, you say this, you say that, but I just think my thought's waiting, but that's me.
Well, and then the last 30 to 35 years, which none of us are responsible for, there was not infrastructure. We didn't do it.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't raise it little by little as maybe.
We didn't do projects that we had money for.
Yeah, we
do things.
We've done more infrastructure here in the last 10 to 12 years than we've ever done in the last 40 years, new water lines, so forth. I'm like Scott, to me, the most important thing right now is this wastewater plant, and we don't know exactly what it's going to cost. We got a figure that's way out of line right now, and we're going to have to deal with that, here next week or whenever. And I just feel like that, to me, that's the number one priority. If we get this wastewater down to a reasonable, cost where we can afford it, so forth, then I might be looking forward down the road. Right now, to me, like Scott is saying, is wastewater plant. We've got to get that thing done and get it handled, because the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost to fix it. We're just in a limbo right now.
But the wastewater doesn't come out of the general.
I understand.
It's all
that.
self-funded.
I know, but we may have to raise the wastewater rates to, down the road to justify what we're going to get ready to do. I mean, that's what we don't know yet. So, I mean, that you've got.
Well, that's why we need the project to stay within the money we have.
Well, I understand that, but we're going to have to figure that out too, how that's going to work.
Well, we have 6 million, Jennifer, that we could without raising rates, plus the CARES Act, plus we have a little bit in reserve that we could move from sewer over to, so we would be at not quite, about 8, to move a little over. That's a lot of money, in my opinion, to work with. We have that.
Yeah, but we got a price of 13 million right now too. So, I mean.
But we haven't We haven't even.
I know, I understand that. We got a lot, you know.
We may keep, it may have to stay at 13, but we may be able to get it down to 8. It may go to 10, it may be 11, it may be 9. We just don't know.
We've heard
We
all
just
of
don't
that.
know where it's at.
Yeah.
And again, it's going to be who talks to you and what their thought and what their, whoever's selling you the stuff, what their long-term goal is or benefit for themselves, as you know, some of those. So
I've been listening to all you guys talk. And Canyon says we've been putting it off, and that's true, we have. And Scotty, I understand your viewpoint, and Jay, yours too. And if we continue to say, oh, let's work with what we got, we're not going to get things done. And our roads keep getting worse. Our city equipment keeps getting older and older. And people that are out there in the world that work for a company, if they have a bad truck, they go to the boss and say, hey, we need this, and they get it usually. Our employees have taken care of the equipment for so long, and a lot of it's 20 years old, that we get it replaced finally. But if we can set the rate at 74, doesn't mean we're going to spend it all, and it may go down with the valuation of the houses too. And so that 4 mills may end up being 2 or 3 mills when it gets all said and done. We don't know that, but I thought we talked about setting, I don't remember what we talked about, but it was either the streets and equipment.
The
And it was-
priority was streets
and it was-
equipment.
And it was like $260,000. 4 mills is $240,000 spread out. And I know it's an increase. I mean, I'm increasing my taxes too, and everybody else's. But what does the citizens expect us to work with? Nothing. I mean, they say, oh, you got all this, but every year our our insurance goes up, and if we don't raise wages every year for employees, we lose employees, and so we have less employees to do the work that needs to be done. Those streets out there in front of people's houses are their streets. It's not our streets. It's their streets. And if they want streets fixed, we've got to raise the mill levy a little bit to where we can accumulate some money to do that. We had a 1/4 cent sales tax quite a few years back, and we accumulated that money to work on roads. And the cost of doing those roads that we did
It's high.
grew every year. So that money that we collected didn't quite get done whatever we wanted. So,
Well, but
my concern is that we're saying we're going to do it for streets. You better get street projects done with this 260,000. If you buy a piece of machine, I mean, that's my concern. If you're going around selling it as we're going to get streets fixed, there's a lot of areas of town that pay a lot in taxes that don't have the streets they used to have. And they're wanting to know, well, let's do it. Well, if they don't get it, they're going to be like, we're just paying more taxes now and we don't have any benefits. I mean, I'm just saying that's my concern is you can't sell it for one thing or the other because we don't really, I mean, the machine's going to cost 200 some thousand. Then you have to hire or train more people to do it and hire more people to have the manpower to do it. And we don't have the projects lined out yet. So I just get nervous saying we're doing it for a certain thing or not a certain thing when we don't really have all those other areas kind of figured out along the way. And we don't know what the long-term cost of those are going to be before we do those projects.
well,
I understand that.
I
So
understand that.
yeah, but the point I'm getting at is if you're going to do streets, then we need to have a sales tax because the people outside the area are using our streets and they're not getting charged for it. You do a mill levy, then it's going to be your property owners inside the city limits are going to pay the taxes, and the people outside are going to drive up and down your streets free, not pay a single dime. Now, that's not fair at all, I don't think.
I was just going to say the same thing.
It's not
The
fair.
last time our roads.
If we're going to do something for the streets, let's do a mill levy. half-cent or quarter-cent mill levy. That way, everybody outside is going to have to pay.
Sales tax.
I mean, sales tax, I'm sorry.
That's how our streets got fixed the last time.
Yeah.
Is that, and they picked out specific areas, and then with some that was left over, we were able to go into the secondary list. And this was all over the city. But if you ever drive down Radio Lane, you'll notice there's no potholes. Just saying, we put money in that road.
Tony,
Yes.
do you about the quarter-cent sales tax we had. The money ran out in 2017. I don't know when you became department head, but you were aware that they had a quarter-cent sales tax. And was all that money, to your knowledge, used on streets?
This year was 15th and Radio Lane.
15th and. Mhm.
The Radio Lane and then 15th Street, we used the rest of it up on 15th Street.
And we were able to match grants with that funding, almost what, $2 million more than what we got in?
That's why we were able to go over
Yeah.
to Madison and
Yeah.
South Summit.
Yeah.
Paid for North Summit from Walnut to Kansas. I think it paid for some of South Summit and then Kansas Avenue.
Yeah. We were able to match more than what we got in, almost
So-
$2
Well, we had to because like you said,
Yeah.
it cost us projects, but when I don't know the exact number.
So a quarter-cent sales tax is 400,000?
Half cent sales tax.
Yeah, I think it was a half cent,
It was half
At
cent.
the time, I think it was around $840,000 a year, something like that.
and it was a 5-year project.
Yeah, the 5-year tax, around 2014, I believe.
I was definitely believe that Jay is right. We have a lot of outside citizens that don't live within the city limits that come in here to do their shopping. I know they'll tell you they can go anywhere to do their shopping, but for convenience sake, I've noticed them in our stores.
Mhm.
So I've always felt like the sales tax was the even tax, that's tax that everybody pays. And I like Dwayne, if we raise the mill, I have property that would be, a
Me
significant
too.
amount, like any of us who are landowners. So you I kind of go back to, can we catch everybody that's coming through the city and purchasing items?
Well,
Sales tax?
another thing I wanted to bring up that comes out of the general fund is our computer software. And we have tried according to the individual who does that, he said that he's had to defer maintenance many times because there's not money in the general fund. We currently have 10-year-old software. It is unsupported by Microsoft. And in order to get a licensing on that, we would have to pay $150 per user. That's 100 users. So $15,000 a year. The police department pays $60,000 a year in their licensing for their things. Computer licensing costs money, but I said to him, great, so we have that done. And he said, no, we don't. There's not money in the general fund. I said, well, how many are you doing? He said, 15 to 25 a year. I said, well, how many do we have? He said, 20. So I said, do you need it done all at once? He said, yes, I do. And so adding this and seeing, we have plenty of time. We're not committing the citizens to an increase. We're saying, we're looking at what we can do during this time and the impact and effect it will have on you. We're asking the employees to do for the citizens. They've got to have stuff to work with.
And they have to be compensated too.
Yeah.
And, they didn't get a raise in their wages for a long time until 16, somewhere there. And so we've got to kind of keep up with surrounding cities on salaries for our employees. I mean,
Well, especially if BMTs are not getting paid.
well, yeah. And like I said, insurance keeps going up for all city employees. So
Well, my thing is, if that's where it comes back to the projects. If you say this 4 mills is going to create 240, 20 of it's going to go to IT software. And then when that gets done, you can say, hey, 20,000 of your mill levy just got this project done. 100,000 is going to go to buying a dump truck. Okay, now this dump truck's been bought with your money. I think if you lay it out like that, the citizens will actually see what their dollars are going for. But I don't think we have a list of those projects. I mean, we have it, but we haven't come up with that list, say, here it is, here's what it is. I mean, we have a list. I mean, everyone's got it, but we can't go there and say, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this is where it's going. They need to see the transparency for it. And I just get nervous kind of doing it, but that's my thoughts.
get the items that we talked about on a list for those 4 mills, which was $240,000. Get a list of what we want to do with it, or what we'd like to do with it, and present that at the meeting.
Absolutely.
Let's just say, let's do it, But if they say, no, we don't want that done, we don't want that done, well, we can lower the mill.
And we can, yeah,
And if
because we're
they say
not locked in.
mill levy, then we can ask them, well, what about a sales tax?
Yeah, and what you're doing today is by no means a commitment to
Yeah.
anything.
Right. It gives us room to talk to them.
They'll be
It
hearing,
makes it where you can see the difference.
And if, like I said, we can set it high and then we can lower it down.
You know, we can drop the wish list altogether.
And they do that
Wait
every
time.
year when they
Wait.
start.
Wait to get, yeah, Tony's
Taking
back
off.
there laughing like, every year we do this. Oh, we can't do it. So, I mean,
Okay,
what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that we approve the resolution of a notice of intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate. Set the date for a public hearing at 5:30 on September 7th for the purpose of hearing and answering objections of taxpayers relating to the revenue neutral rate and the amount of ad valorem tax and proposed use of all funds.
second.
So do you need to put the number in that motion? So you want to consider resolution approving the notice of intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate to
74.26 or 76, what is it?
76.
276,
74,276.
74,276.
You're good with numbers.
I might point out one other thing, because I know some of you are concerned about this resolution, but just really, other than the fact that this new legislation forces us to make an earlier decision on discussing, this is the same discussions you'd had every year. It's just another legislative layer put in there that you have to, earlier in the budget process, put out a number. And you're still going to work through just like you would every other year to come to a budget that you're comfortable with and that works for the citizens. So just keep that in mind. This is not by no means a commitment. It's just an extra step, and it's just a top layer, basically a top on this that says.
It doesn't say it's in cement. Does
Yeah.
it?
As we work through this, you're just definitely not going to go higher than this, but
It gets us to that discussion with
That's right.
citizens.
I think the citizens need to understand that too, that this is not a commitment by anybody on this, but this is just another imposed statute that we have, a deadline that we have to meet, and we can't work through the process to the budget without putting some number out there right now. And so.
Yeah, I
keep that in
mean,
mind.
come September 7th, it can go lower if need be. I mean, if they say no.
Yeah.
Then we'll go another round.
And like, some of the things that we've talked about, needing to really know how that money would be used. If we haven't come to that comfort level, then, we stay, we do what we normally do on budget. We just leave those alone and kind of keep it where it's normal. So I just want to make sure everybody's, I know it's an uncomfortable situation for everybody, but it
There's
doesn't.
a lot of committees out there that say this is what we need to do, and traffic safety committee is one of them, and beautification board's another one, and I'm sure there's a couple more planning. And we need to get people to understand where we're coming from. I mean, it's just not, oh, you're going to raise it and stuff.
That's
And
why.
I know. And then they've got to come here and talk to us, and I'd rather have them come to a town hall meeting than to call one of us, and so we can all hear what they say instead of one member commission. Because that way we hear what they say and it may not get lost in translation, which it does a lot. So
A motion has been made by Commissioner Eastman to set it to 74.276. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Ginger, second that. This is a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Motion has passed 3-2 to set basically set a public hearing to discuss the new potential mill levy. So that's all we have for that. I know there's, Randy's got some stuff about the meeting Tuesday at 4, right?
Yeah, so I want to talk about that. So we'll have the design build team come in on Tuesday afternoon. I didn't know if you guys would be available at 3 or 4 to meet with them. If we go through detail, any kind of detail at all on their design build bid, it would take a little bit of time, and we do have you guys have a meeting right at 5 with the land bank. So I didn't know if you guys would be available at 3 or not.
We can be if you want.
Yeah, we can.
I just want to make sure we have plenty of time for,
So we don't rush it for the.
right, and I'm sure you're gonna have plenty of questions as well about what they're proposing and the process and stuff.
Will you have that thing you sent us on that deal, will you have a copy of that for us for that meeting, that cost, that you had broken down?
We don't have it. That was one of
Oh,
the,
you just said that was
Just
just
a
a
discussion.
email you sent yesterday about meeting
yeah,
or whatever.
they did not leave that for us. We walked through it, but they said because of competitive reasons, they couldn't leave it with us. So,
Yours, I think, were just generalized handwritten notes of
Right.
professors.
Yes,
You weren't a
okay.
detailed breakdown
Okay.
of it all.
yeah, it was just stuff I scribbled down through.
Okay, that's what you sent us.
But, and so, yeah, some of them lines may be off a little bit, but the total at the end was the number that we came at. So, again, that's, that works for all of you.
3 Tuesday?
Yeah,
Here?
either here or over in my office there.
Municipal court.
Okay.
In the office.
Okay, so, yeah, we can meet.
Okay. Is that it?
Moses, anything else from you guys? We're the 150th here in 25 minutes, or the time capsule, so.
Where the mayor's going to speak.
You can do it.
Well, I don't have anything else. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Stay and watch the time capsule.